So hello guys, I'm back with a new lecture. In this lecture, we will be starting with the concept of subrings. Okay, subrings. Okay. Under the concept of group theory, we had studied that if you have a group G star and you take a subset of this group and A star is also a group, then we said that A is a subgroup of G. A is a subgroup of G. And mind it, the group theory we had operated using only one operation. What happens if a similar condition arises in case of ring theory? What I mean to say is that suppose you have a ring R. Suppose you have a ring R and you take a subset of R such that A is a ring with respect to same operation. Same operations. That is, if R ring is like this, then A plus dot is also a ring. Is it clear? Then we say that A is a subring. A is a subring of R. Is it clear? The concept of subring is clear. Got it? Got it? You have a ring R, you take a subset of R, A, and you find that A also forms a ring under the same set of operations. Then A is said to be a subring of that particular ring. Under group theory, what was the condition for some subset to be a subgroup? So if you had G star as a group and you take a subset of G such that AB belongs to capital A implied AB inverse belongs to capital A, then that implies A is a subgroup of G. We use kind of a same condition for subrings too. Okay. Since in case of subrings, multiplicative inverses are not always to be available. Additive inverses are always available, but multiplicative inverses are not always to be available. So we kind of modify the condition as applied in case of group theory. So what are those conditions basically? So carefully notice this. So for R plus dot bearing A is a subring of R if point number one AB belonging to capital A implies A minus B belongs to capital A. Minus B is basically the additive inverse of B. Okay, basically this is kind of like this. Okay, minus B is the additive inverse of B. Clear? And the second point is AB belonging to A implies A multiplicative B belongs to. Is it clear, guys? This is the condition for some subset of a ring to be a subring. Is it okay? Is it okay? Let us take an example. Let us take an example. Suppose you have Z plus dot as a ring. Suppose you have Z plus dot as a ring. What can you say about this particular subset of Z in our positive integers? See, if you take AB from NZ, what is the value of A minus B? It is some NK minus N L, let's say, where K and L belongs to the set of integers, which is kind of written as N of K minus L. K and L when belongs to the set of integers, K minus L will also be an integer. So this belongs to the set of NZ. Clear? In case of multiplication also same thing happens. What is NK into NL? What is NK into NL? We know that Z is a commutative ring with unity, so we can obviously write it as N square KL, which can be written as N into NKL. This is a integer, this is an integer, so this belongs to the set of NZ as well. Therefore we can say that Nz is always a subring of Z. Do keep it in mind always. Is it clear, guys? Is it clear? Will union of two subrings be a subring? Will union of two subrings be a subring? Kind of a question. Is union of two subrings a subring? So we can obviously verify this using an example. We can obviously verify this using an example. Let's say you take 2z. So this is 0 plus minus 2 plus minus 4 and so on. And you take 3z. This is 0 plus minus 3 plus minus 6 and so on. What will their union give you? You will have 0 plus minus 2 plus minus 3 plus minus 4 plus minus 6 and so on. If you take plus 2 and plus 3 from 2z union 3z, then 2 minus 3 does not belong to 2z union 3z. You can obviously see it from here. Therefore, this is not a subring, but 2z and 3z individually are subrings. So union of two subrings is not mandatory to be a subring. What can we say about the intersection of two subrings? Intersection of two subrings is always a subring. Intersection of two subrings is always a subring. Addition of two subrings is always a subring. Even multiplication of two subrings, or multiplication in kind of, you can say it as a product of two subrings. Okay. Addition means addition means additive of sets, additive operation on sets. Okay. Not our algebraic addition, additive operation on sets. Okay. Okay. Basically, those concepts are more valued for ideals. We will talk about that. Okay. Now for subrings, which are the basic theorems? For subrings, which are the basic theorems? For subrings, which are the basic theorems? So point number one, this set of 0 is always a subring. Point number two, for some ring R, it is a subring of itself. It is a subring of itself. And intersection of two subrings, intersection of two subrings is always a subring. Okay. Intersection of two subrings is always a subring. Is it clear, guys? Is it clear? Is it clear? Do remember these three theorems. Now if you view this topic of subrings, according to your competitive exams, then subrings is not that important, but there is a branch of subring which is very, very important for your exams, for your educational life, which is the concept of ideals. Okay, you might have heard the term previously, the concept of ideals. Okay, ideals are some special subrings. Ideals are some special subrings. So how do we define ideals? Pretty easy. We talk about the definition. Let's see. So for some ring R, a subset of R be non-empty, then A is an ideal of R if and only if, point number one, x and y belongs to A implies x minus y belongs to A. Point number two, x belongs to A and R belongs to this ring R implies x multiplicative R and R multiplicative x, they both belong to A. These two conditions are what necessary. These two conditions are what necessary for some subset of R to be called an ideal of R. Now every ideal is a subring. Every ideal is a subring. I'm writing it here. Every ideal is a subring. How can you verify it? So see, this condition is obviously the first condition of a subset to be a subring. What can we do about the second condition? So see, since A is a subset of R, so this particular element which belongs to capital R, we can take the same element from A also, right? Because A is a subset of R. Okay, we can consider small r belonging to A as A is a subset of R. And if small r belongs to A, then the second condition of subrings is obvious. So every ideal is a subring, but all subrings are not ideals. Every ideal is a subring, but every ideal is a subring, but not all subrings are ideals. Is it clear? So these are the conditions for some subring to be an ideal. And ideals are what are very, very, very important. Okay. Okay. Let's take an example. Suppose you have this ring Z additive Z, and you take this subset XX such that X belongs to Z. Will this S be a subring or ideal? Whenever you get questions like this where you are asked that whether some particular subset will be a subring or an ideal, first check whether that subset is an ideal or not. Because if it is an ideal, then it will obviously be a subring. If it is not an ideal, it can still be a subring, but if it is an ideal, it will obviously be a subring. So let us first check the condition whether it is ideal or not. So if you take any two elements from it, let's say A, B belongs to Z, S. Okay. What can you say about this particular operation? So this will give you A minus B, which is pretty much evident that it belongs to S. Also, what is A times BB? Or let us do one thing. Let us check for the ideal as I just said. So let's say A belongs to S and BB. Or let's do one thing. Let us take a counter example. Let us take some particular example to see. Let us take some particular example to see. Okay. See, one thing is very much evident from here. If you take A times BB, this will belong to S. Okay, because this gives you AB. So this is pretty much obvious that this will be a subring. Will it be an ideal? If you take 1 from S and 1 0 from R, their product is 1 0, which does not belong to S. So this won't be an ideal, but will be a subring. Non-ideal subring. Clear? There are various examples for some particular subset to be a subring as well as an ideal or only a subring. Okay. Okay. Let us take a very important result from the concept of ideals. Let R be a ring with unity. Okay. And unity 1 and A be any ideal. A be any ideal of R. Then A equals R by conditional statement if 1 belongs to A. Okay. Let R be a ring with unity 1 and A be any ideal of R. Then A equals R if and only if 1 belongs to A. We can easily prove this. See, R is a ring with unity. Let A belongs to R and small r belongs to capital R. Since 1 belongs to A, we can take A as 1. Okay. So 1 times R and R times 1 will belong to A because A is an ideal. So that implies this is also R, this is also R. That implies R belongs to A, which implies R is a subset of A. Also, since A is an ideal, so A is a subset of R. So equality of sets, from here we can conclude that A equals to R. Clear? Clear? If we generalize this a bit more, what can we say? If we generalize this a bit more, what can we say? So let R be a ring with unity, be a ring with unity. Let X belongs to R, be any unit. So here take unit as X, arbitrary unit. If I be any ideal of R, if I be any ideal of R such that X belongs to I, then that implies I equals to R. Okay. So you take a ring R and you take a unit of R as X. R is a ring with unity, and I is any ideal of R. If that unit X belongs to I, then I equals R. Okay. How to verify this? See. Acha, X belongs to I. We can consider from here. Okay. X belongs to I. Since X is any unit, so X, the inverse of X will belong to R. So we can take X inverse belongs to R. Composing them will give us X inverse belongs to I. That implies 1 belongs to I, and we have previously seen that if 1 belongs to I, then that implies I equals R. Okay, clear? Okay. Is this much clear, guys? Acha, what can you say? What can you say about the number of ideals in a field? How many ideals are there in a non-zero field? Take your time and solve this question. You can pause the video and start this question. How to find this? How to find this? Acha, F is given as, let us take F be a field. Let us take F as a field, and A is any ideal of F. A is any ideal of F. Okay. So if small a belongs to capital A, we can consider A inverse belongs to F because F is a field. F is a commutative division ring. From here, what can we say? From here, what can we say? From here, we can say that A inverse belongs to A. That implies to 1 belongs to A. From here, we can say A equals F. From here, we can say A equals F. That means if you have a field and if you take any ideal of F, then that particular ideal is the field itself. Okay. Will there be one more ideal? Yeah. A equals to 0 is also an ideal. So for any field, non-zero field, you will get two particular ideals, exactly two ideals. Exactly two ideals. 0 and the field itself. Keep this in mind, guys. Keep this in mind. Okay. Okay. This happens for non-zero fields. Acha. Acha. Acha, what are the number of ideals in Z? What are the number of ideals in Z? Take your time and do it, guys. Pause the video and try. Suppose you take this subset NZ. Will this be an ideal? NK minus NL will obviously belong to NZ. Let NK belong to NZ and L belongs to Z. What is NK times L? KL will be obviously be an integer because K is an integer, L is an integer specifically. So NKL will belong to the NZ. And what is L times NK? What is L times NK? Z is a CRU, commutative ring. Commutative ring. So this can be written as NK into L, obviously. Obviously. That means this also belong to NZ. Therefore nz is an ideal for all n belonging to a set of positive integers. Therefore the number of ideals in z is infinitely many. Infinitely many. Every nz subset will be an ideal in z. Clear? Clear? Got it, guys? Okay. Okay. Acha, we get some very important results for the concept of ideals. Result number one is intersection of two ideals is always an ideal. Intersection of two ideals is always an ideal. Sum of two ideals is an ideal. Sum means here additive operation between sets, and product of two ideals, product I will be telling you. Product of two ideals is an ideal. Okay, so these are the three results which you get. Okay, intersection of two ideals is always an ideal, sum of two ideals is always an ideal, and product of two ideals is always an ideal. What is the product of two ideals? Basically I am giving you product of ideals is somewhat given like this. Suppose A is an ideal and B is an ideal. So AB set is given like this: A1 B1 plus A2 B2, so on till AN Bn, such that any AI elements belongs to A, any Bi element belongs to B, and N is a natural number. Clear? This is how product of two ideals is defined. Got it? Got it? More precisely speaking, for this set of integers, ring of integers more specifically, mz is an ideal and nz is an ideal. What will be mz intersection nz? This will be basically lz, where L is the LCM of m and n. What will be mz plus nz? This is given as d of z, where d is the GCD of m and n. And what will be mz multiplied to nz? This will basically be mnz. Clear? Do keep this in mind. In this way you can easily form the sets when one of these three operations is given between two ideals, and you can obviously verify whether that particular operated set, a result set, is an ideal or not. Okay, these three will always be ideals. Okay, clear? Let us solve some questions on ideals, guys. Let us solve some questions on ideals. We will take one good question. Okay, suppose you have, let R be a 2 into 2 matrix of real numbers, and you take S as this set of these matrices, X belongs to R. Okay, options given: S is a subring and ideal, S is a subring but not an ideal, S is not an ideal but a subring, S is not an ideal as well as not a subring. Clear? See, this option you can cancel out at the very beginning, because if it is an ideal, it is obvious to be a subring. Okay, so it can be ideal but not a subring. That is a completely wrong option. What can you do about the other two? Let us check whether this is an ideal or not. Let us first check whether this is an ideal or not. Suppose you take this 1 0 0 0 from S and 1 1 1 1 from R. What will the product be? So this will be 1 times 1 and 0 times 0. So this will be 1, the rest will be 0. Right? This is, no, this will be 1. Okay, 1 times 1, yeah. So the matrix will be like this, which does not belong to S. That means it won't be an ideal. That means it won't be an ideal. That means it won't be an ideal. So this option is also cancelled out. Will it be a subring? X000 minus Y000 will obviously belong to S. What about the product? If we multiply these two, what we will get? We will get XY. So this will also belong to S. So this will be a subring. So this is the correct answer. Will be a subring but not an ideal. Is it clear? Is it clear? Got it? Okay. What if I ask you, what can you say about the number of ideals of M2 cross 2 set of reals plus dot? Let's say I have given option U infinity, option B 2, option C more than 2, option D less than 2. Okay, okay. See, to solve this, you need a very important result which says that for any ring R, ideals of M n cross n R is of the type M n cross n I, where I is an ideal of R. So whatever will be the number of ideals of the ring R, that much number of ideals you will get of the matrix ring. What are the number of ideals of the set of reals? 2 is the field. So answer will be option B. Is it clear? Is it clear? Got it? Got it? One second, guys. This lecture might be a bit long. I will be trying to cover as much as possible in this particular lecture. This much is clear, guys? Okay. So, there is a very important ring which is called the ring of Gaussian integers. Ring of Gaussian integers. This is a very important ring, Zi, given as a plus ib, such that a and b they both belong to the set of integers. Before moving on to details, what can you say about the unit of Zi? Let's see. What can you say about the units of Zi? Can you give me the units of Zi? Take your time and try to solve. Pause the video. I'm doing it. Suppose let U be an unit of Zi. Then V belongs to Zi. There exists some V belongs to Zi such that U times V is 1, or we can say mod of UV is 1, or we can say mod of U times mod of V is 1. Now if V is the inverse of U, we can also say U is the inverse of V. So see, since U and V both has their real parts as integers, both are complexes, right? Complexes are having their real parts as integers. So from here we can obviously say that either this is 1 or V is 1. Without loss of generality, we can take mod U as 1. Operating any one of them will do. Here we consider U to be some a plus ib complex number. So from here what can we say? Root over of a square plus b square equals 1, which implies a square plus b square equals 1. Since a and b are individually integers, so from here we get a square equals to 1 or b square equals to 1. When a square is 1, b is 0. When b square equals 1, then a is 0. Is it clear? Is it clear? From here what can we do? A equals to plus minus 1 or b is equals to plus minus 1. What are the values of u then? When a is plus minus 1, you get 1 minus 1. When b is plus minus 1, you get I minus I. So these are the units of Zi. Clear? 1 minus 1, I minus I. Is it clear? Is it clear? Okay. Let's check a very important problems regarding ideals and the ring of Gaussian integers. This question had come in the Delhi University exam, MSc entrance 2015. Given as let S equals to A plus IB such that A and B belongs to the set of integers and B is even. Then option A, S is a subring and ideal. Option B, S is a subring, not an ideal. Option C, S is not a subring but an ideal. Option D, S is neither subring nor ideal. Verify as quickly as possible. Verify as quickly as possible. Pause the video and try to do it on your own. Will I be doing it? Will I be doing it? Okay. Let us first check whether this is an ideal or not. Okay. So let A plus IB belong to S, C plus ID belong to the ring Zi. See, this is pretty much evident that S is a subset of the ring Zi. Okay, so this subring and ideal concept is dependent upon this ring Zi. S is here being considered, or is basically here considered, not considered basically. S is existing as a subset of Zi. Okay, S is existing as a subset of Zi. So here the ring is considered to be Zi, and S is just a subset of that Zi. Okay. If you have studied complex number, you are pretty much obvious that the difference, if you take C plus ID from this S, then the difference of those two complex number will surely belong to S, right? Or should I do it? Achha, I am doing it. See, let A plus IB, C plus ID belong to S. So what is A minus C plus IB minus D? Also belong to S. Since B is congruent to 0 mod 2, D is congruent to 0 mod 2, that implies B minus D is congruent to 0 mod 2, right? So this will belong to S. What can you say about the condition of his ideality? So let A plus IB belong to S and IC belongs to ZI. Here A is an odd number, here C is an odd number. Clear? We can consider complex numbers of this form because the only restriction is here B must be even. So B is even, A is odd, and this is taken from ZI, so C can be anything. C is odd. If you multiply them, what you get? You get IAC minus BC. A is odd, C is odd, so AC is also odd. A is odd, C is odd, so AC is also odd. That means this does not belong to S. Therefore, is not an ideal. Is not an ideal. What about being subrings? So if A plus IB and C plus ID belong to S, what is the product given as? AC minus BD plus I into BC plus AD. Okay. Since B is congruent to 0 mod 2, D is congruent to 0 mod 2, BA plus CD will also be congruent to 0 mod 2. Properties of modulus. That means this will belong to Z S. Therefore, will be a subring but not an ideal. So option B is correct. Clear? Clear? Acha, just so this much is okay, guys, right? Acha. Now, just as I took an example of this ring of Gaussian integers Zi, in a similar way, we can define more rings of the form Z root 2, Z root 3, Q root minus 2, Q root 5, and so on. What is Z root 2? Z root 2 will be set of the form A plus root 2B such that A and B belongs to the set of integers. What is Z root 3? Defined as the set of a plus root 3b such that a and b belongs to the set of integers. What is q root minus 2? This is set of a plus root over of minus 2b such that a and b belongs to the set of integers. What is q root 5? A plus root 5b such that a and b belong to the set of integers. Sorry, rationals. Sorry. Not integers, rationals. Sorry. My bad. My bad. Rationals. Clear? Acha, what type of ring Z is? CRU. What type of ring Q is? Field. That is the reason why all these type of rings are CRUs and all these type of rings are fields. QI, Q root minus 2, Q root 5, Q root 3. Any Q root A where A is not a perfect square will be a field. Okay, clear? Acha. Acha, now suppose we take one second. One second. Okay. Acha, these particular rings Q root 2, Q root 3 and so on. Acha, they contain Q. Pretty much obvious. They contain Q. Q is contained in these rings and they are contained in the ring of reals. They are contained in the ring of reals. That means these type of rings are basically, kind of here, present here. Okay, and they are fields. And they are fields. Achha, these type of when you have subrings which behave as fields, then those subrings are called subfields. Okay, so we can obviously say that q root 2, q root 3, these are subfields of our proper subfields of R. Okay, so R has proper subfields, has infinitely many proper subfields, because you can form infinitely many fields of this type. R has infinitely many proper subfields. Will Q have proper subfields? So the rings which we just considered, Z root 2, Z root 3 and so on, they also contain Z and are itself contained in Q, but they are not fields. They are not fields, they are CRUs. So Q has no proper subfield. Q has no proper subfield. What can you conclude from this statement? What can you conclude from this statement? Very important. Set of rationals is the smallest ideal in our number system. The ring of rationals is the smallest ideal in our number system. Is it clear? Is this concept clear? Okay. Now we move on to one more, convincing topic from the concept of ring theory, which is the characteristic of a ring. Which is the characteristic of a ring. A number of topics which are being studied today, please do keep a note of them. They are very, very important. Characteristic of a ring. So for some ring R, for some ring R, characteristic of R equals n, where n belongs to positive integers. If and only if, point number 1, nx equals 0 for all x belongs to the ring R. Option 2, there exists a smallest positive integer n obeying point number 1. That is, this particular point number 1, nx equals to 0 for some positive integer n for all x equals to 0, this condition must be obeyed by some existing smallest positive integer. Clear? Some smallest positive integer. For example, if you take the ring Z3, what are the elements? 0, 1, 2. Okay. See, n equals to 3, n equals to 6, n equals to 9, n equals to 12. If you take n as the multiples of 3, then this condition will always be obeyed. 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 1 is 0, 3 times 2 is 0, right? Under multiplicative modulo 3, Z3 group is multiplicative modulo 3 and additive modulo 3, right? The operations are existing as modulo 3. So 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 1 is 0, 3 times 2 is 0. Similarly, 6 times 1 will be 6 times 0 will be 0, 6 times 1 will be 0, 6 times 2 will be 0, 9 times 0 will be 0, 9 times 1 will be 0, 9 times 2 will be 0. So in this way we can keep going as we take the multiples of 3 as n. But what basically? Then are all these positive integers the characteristic of the ring Z3? No. The smallest one amongst this n values, which is 3, this will be the characteristic of Z3. Okay. So I hope the second point is clear. We have also concluded one more result from this example itself, that the characteristic of any Zn ring is n. The characteristic of any Zn ring is n. Keep it very clear. Acha, if there exists some ring which has no characteristic, then what we can say? Suppose R is a ring such that there exists no such smallest positive integer n such that nx equals 0 for all x belongs to R, then the characteristic of R is taken to be 0. Then the characteristic of R is taken to be 0. For example, characteristic of Z will be 0. I don't need to explain why. You can obviously verify it on your own. Characteristic of Q will be 0. Characteristic of R will be 0. Characteristic of C will be 0. Because there exists no such smallest positive integer such that when multiplied to each and every element of these particular rings, you will get 0. Okay. Okay. What can we say about the characteristic of Z additive Z5? Acha, this element Z additive Z5, what are the elements of this particular set? AB, such that A belongs to Z, B belongs to Z5. Okay. Acha, if you multiply n to them, what will you have? NA, NB. Does there exist any such smallest positive integer for which NA equals 0 and NB equals 0? See, obviously, if you take n equals to 5, then NB elements will all be 0. Then NB elements will all be 0. But there is nothing you can say about NA element. So there basically exists no such positive integer n for which n times AB will become 0. So that means the characteristic of this particular set is 0. Whenever you have Z additive something, because characteristic of Z is 0, you can obviously verify this in this particular way to see the characteristic of that particular set will be 0. Is it clear? What can you say about the characteristic of Z Z3 additive Z4? Do it on your own. Pause the video and do it on your own. Pause the video and do it on your own. I'm taking a 2 minute break, guys. 2 minute break, just 2 minute break. Okay. So, what are the elements of Z3 additive Z4? This is AB, such that A belongs to Z3, B belongs to Z4. So if you take n times AB, which becomes NaNB, for what such smallest positive integer will you get both these values to be equals to 0? So you can, if you pretty much imagine this in your mind, you're pretty much obvious to find that n must be the smallest LCM. I mean the LCM, not the smallest. I was about to write the smallest multiple, smallest common multiple. LCM of n, LCM of 3 and 4. Okay, 12. 12. So if you multiply the elements with 12, you will get both the elements as 0. Yeah, so n must be 12. Characteristic of this will be 12. If we write in a more generalized way, the characteristic of any two additive rings is equals to the LCM of the characteristic of R1 and the characteristic of R2. Okay. So for ZMN, characteristic of ZM and Zn, the LCM will be of M and N, and you are good to go. Is it clear? Is it clear? What can you say about the characteristic of n cross n matrix? What is the characteristic of M n cross n matrix? This is equals to the characteristic of R. Reason is, suppose an element of this M n cross n R is like this: A1, A2, till here you have An, move on to here as Am, like this. Okay. So if you multiply this with n, so this is similar to writing it as n multiplied to each and every element. When will each and every element be equal to 0? When n equals to the characteristic of R. So what you need to multiply to this matrix is simply the characteristic of R. So that will itself be the characteristic of this M n cross n matrix, right? So from here what we can conclude? The characteristic of M n cross n Z is Zn, let's say, is n. Characteristic of M n cross n Q is 0. Is it clear? Is it clear? What can you say about the characteristic of what can you say about the characteristic of a polynomial ring? What can you say about the characteristic of a polynomial ring? What a polynomial ring? Zx is the ring of polynomials of integers. Ring of integer polynomials. Ring of integer polynomials. What does this mean? So set of all those functions fx belongs to, basically set of all those functions such that the coefficients of f belong to z. Okay. So integer polynomial ring is the set of all those polynomial functions whose coefficients belong to the set of integers. if you take the polynomial qx, then it will be the set of all those polynomial functions such that coefficients of f belong to q and so on, right? You can similarly form the integer polynomial ring for the set of reals, polynomial ring for the set of complexes. If coefficients are complex number, then the function polynomial function will belong to the set of ring of complexes. For example, if we take, say, a polynomial of this form, 1 plus 2x plus 3x cube, 1 plus root 2x plus x cube, 1 plus uh, ix plus 3x cube. So here this particular polynomial function will belong to integer polynomial ring, coefficients are integer. Also rational polynomial ring, coefficients are rationals. Also real polynomial ring, coefficients are real. Also complex polynomial ring, sorry, x, not I, x. Okay. Also complex polynomial ring. What will this belong to? Root 2 is neither rational nor integer, so real polynomial ring and complex polynomial ring. What will this belong to? Complex polynomial ring. Is it clear? This is I. Is it clear? Is it clear? So what will the characteristic of a complex polynomial ring? Sorry, of any random polynomial ring? Characteristic of any random polynomial ring where R is a ring. So this will be similar to characteristic of R. This will be similar to characteristic of. The reason is that suppose fx belongs to Rx such that fx is given as a plus bx square and so on till some n x to the power n, say kx to the power n, let's say. So if you multiply this particular function with the characteristic of R, say the characteristic of R is n, so what will be n times fx? So na plus nb x square and so on till n k x to the power n. Since a, b till k belong to this ring R, so they will individually be 0, so this becomes 0. So nfx becomes 0. That means the characteristic of Rx will be same as the characteristic of R. Is it clear? Is it clear? Some important results regarding characteristics is mm, the characteristic of a field is either 0 or prime. Okay, the characteristic of a field is either 0 or prime. What about the integral domain? The characteristic of an integral domain is also either 0 or prime. Clear? So these two please do remember. There is one third result also, but which we had previously discussed. There is the characteristic of two additive sets is the LCM of each individual characteristic. Is it clear, guys? Is the concept of characteristics clear? This lecture is becoming pretty long. Let us cover one more particular topic, then we will stop this lecture. One more particular topic, okay? Which is the concept of principal ideals. Okay, the concept of principal ideals, very important, very important. What is the concept of principal ideals? So there is a very important term in ring theory which is called ideals generated by elements. Ideals generated by elements. Okay, suppose you take n elements from some particular ring, which is, let the ring be a CRU. Okay, so let R be a CRU and A1, A2, A3, they belong to till AN, let's say they belong to R. Okay, so this is the symbol for ideal generated by all these elements, all these n elements, which is given as the set R1 A1 plus R2 A2 till Rn An, such that Ri, any Ri element from this particular set belongs to this same ring R. Okay, this is called an ideal generated by ideals generated by A1 A2 till A. If we confide the number of elements to some two particular elements, how will this generated ideal get changed? If we take only two elements A and B, how will this ideal structure change? So this will become Ra times some Sb, such that R and S belongs to the ring. So this is said to be the ideal generated by AB. What if we confide this generated ideal to only one element? What if we confide this generated ideal to only one element? If you take this particular ideal, this will look like Ra, such that R belongs to ring. So this set contains only ring multiples of A. Ring multiples of A, right? Ring multiples of A. These particular ideals generated by one some particular element of a ring R is called a principal ideal generated by A. This is called a principal ideal generated by A. Is it clear? Is it clear? Got it? Got it? Okay. Okay. Acha, suppose you take the integer polynomial ring. Suppose you take the integer polynomial ring. Okay. Acha, x minus 1, 2, okay, x square minus x. These are elements of this integer polynomial ring, of course. Okay. Let us generate ideals using these particular elements. Acha, what is the generated ideal using x? So this is given as, say, x times fx, such that fx belongs to zx, right? See, I should have written it like this, fx times x, but since zx is commutative, so x times fx is also right. Acha, if I take fx as a0 plus a1x so on till a n x to the power n, then how can we write this set now? So we can write this set as a0x so on till a n x to the power n plus 1, okay, such that fx, or let us not write it like this. Acha, suppose you have a function of this form a0x and so on till a n x to the power n plus 1. What will be the value of this function at x equals to 0? 0. So this ideal generated by x is basically the set of all those functions belonging to the integer polynomial ring such that g of 0 is 0. Clear? 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 Okay. Acha. Suppose now we want to talk about principal ideal generated by x minus 1. How will it look like? So we take again fx as the same a0 plus a1x and so on till a n x to the power n. So when x minus 1 is multiplied to this particular function, so this gets changed to a0x plus a1x square and so on till a n x to the power n plus 1. minus a0 minus a1x minus and so on till minus an x to the power n. How can we further change this? So we can write it like this: a0 plus a0 minus a1x plus a1 minus a2 x square and so on till a n minus 1 minus a n x to the power n plus a n x to the power n plus 1. If we have any arbitrary function of this particular form, fx is equals to minus a0 plus a0 minus a1x plus a1 minus a2 x square and so on till a n minus 1 minus a n x to the power n plus a n x to the power n plus 1. What can we say about this function, guys? So if you take f of 1 as, if you put x equals to 1, if you see, this is a0 minus a0 plus a0 minus a1 plus a1 minus a2 plus a2 obviously minus a3 and so on till you have plus an minus 1 minus an plus an. Each of these will cancel out, which is 0. So principal ideal generated by x minus 1 is the set of all those functions belonging to the integer polynomial ring such that f of 1 is 0. Clear? Clear? Let us take one more example and then I will give you a homework and stop this lecture. It is already pretty long. What is the principal ideal generated by x comma 2? Okay, let's see. So how will this look? So this will look like x fx plus 2gx such that fx and gx belong to the integer ring polynomial. If we consider fx to be the same function a1x plus a2x square and so on till an x to the power n, and we take gx as b0 plus b1x and so on till bn x to the power n, and if we put this here, so what this set looks like now, so it is a0x plus a1 x square and so on till an x to the power n plus 2b0 plus 2b1x and so on till 2bn x to the power n. Sorry, this is n plus 1. How can we write it? So we get 2b0 plus a0 plus 2b1 x plus a1 plus 2b2 x square so on till you have a n minus 1 plus 2bn x to the power n plus a to the power n x to the power n plus 1. What can you say about this function? The constant is even number. The constant is even number. You can obviously see it from here. The constant is even number. That is f0 is even. Okay. f0 f0 will give you the constant value of any function, any polynomial function. F0 is even. So the ideal generated by x comma 2 is given as the set of all those functions fx belongs to zx such that 2 divides f of 0. Clear? So let this keep lecture be up till this much, guys. I'm giving you a homework here. Please try to find the principal ideal generated by x square minus x. Okay, homework. Got it? Clear? In the next lecture, I will be starting with prime and maximum ideals. Prime and maximal ideals. Okay? So meet you guys in the next lecture.